goodness. Don't wake me up out of my sleep for that stupid crap.
There we go. To flip my camera around. Hi. Hold on. I can't hear. So let me figure out my volume. No, that's not it. I cannot hear. Say something for me. Okay. It sounds low. I'm going to grab my headset. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to work it like this. All right. We will make the best of it. I can hear you a little bit. I said, we're going to make the best of it. I can hear you a little bit. It sounds faint, and it's probably some tech issue on my end because I'm not the greatest with technology.
Okay. So,
All right.
welcome everyone. I'm Zakearah, and I'm a mental health advocate with the Mental Health Awareness Project, MHAP. The Mental Health Awareness Project is a youth-led program through which young people in New York City are trained and engaged as mental health care advocates in our communities. MAP's goal is to both empower youth and break the stigma tied to mental health by creating safe spaces led by young people to talk about mental health and other topics that affect our mental health. In honor of Women's History Month, we are highlighting women in the mental health field. Today, I'll be interviewing Denise Relf, a life coach and consultant. Am I saying your name properly?
You said that amazingly. Thank you.
So, please introduce yourself.
Okay. So like she introduced, I am Denise Relf, and so on the personal side, I am a proud Black Bronx woman. Okay. That is on the personal side. I'm a God-fearing woman. I love smartphone photography. That's how I kind of decompress. And on the professional side, I am the owner of Never Stop Growing Coaching and Consulting. It is a business that I launched back in 2020, and it's two sides to it. So one side is life coaching, and the other side is the consulting side, where I support leadership development, program development, and I have workshops to help caretakers and youth really become aware of the various social and emotional development needs and strengthen their bonds. At the core of everything that I do with my practice, though, the belief is that if you transform the way you see yourself, you open up a wealth of possibilities. And so that is my professional side.
So I want to first thank you for taking the time out of your day for doing this interview.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
So, our first question, can you explain what a life coach is and what sparked your interest in the field?
Yes. So a life coach is someone who helps you to achieve a goal. And so we help you to achieve a goal by working through challenges, struggles, things that you're excited about, have any kind of angst about, and we help you weed through that to find an identified goal, like a target that you want to work towards. And then we sit down and strategize with you. We strategize ways for you to successfully accomplish that. And in strategizing, of course, we want to make sure that you are able to execute it, carry that out, and be successful. So we are there to provide a bunch of different supportive measures, as well as holding you accountable to yourself in completing that. So we support you along that way. And so the sparked my interest. So I've always had this passion for helping people to really just live in their authentic self, like be themselves and enjoy being just that and making decisions from a place of who you are genuinely. So that was just always a passion that I had. And then professionally, I was in a bunch of different leadership development roles for years, and I saw this opportunity present itself for a coach. And as soon as I got in, so I applied, got it, and as soon as I got in, I fell in love. Like this was like a whole different ball game. There was structure in how to help people really achieve success. And so I coupled that with my own passion because it was coaching for leaders within child welfare. And so I wanted to make it more of my own. So I took that and I coupled it with my own passion and came up with my own kind of flair and launched my practice. And then as of this year, I am fully self-employed and I'm in love with what I do because, thank you, because I get to serve people in the way that makes me feel good inside and out every day.
The second question, what is life like on a daily basis as a life coach? Walk us through your day as a life coach.
Yes. So life on a daily basis is not as glamorous as it may seem. There's a lot of back and forth correspondence. So social media is now the thing. So I'm constantly on social media, not so much for the enjoyment aspect of it, but just communicating with potential clients, current clients, posting content, creating content. And then when I have my sessions, that's kind of where I feel most in my zone. When I'm meeting one-on-one with someone or doing group workshops, because now I'm connecting with people and helping to support them in their need. And as a transformational coach, it's all about, like I mentioned, transforming the way you see yourself. So when I'm one-on-one with clients or in group workshops, I'm like supporting people through identifying who they are and how to love on themselves more. So that part of my day, and it doesn't happen every day, but when I get to do that part I enjoy thoroughly. Every day, every other day is connecting and trying to get more of that going.
Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Right now, so it changes. As I evolve, it changes. And so right now, I would say I'm inspired by a couple of pastors, Jerry Flowers, Michael Todd, Stephen Furtick, then celebrity-wise, Tyler Perry, like his story of homelessness and persevering and performing to an audience of one or sometimes none. Oprah, her stories. Yeah. So especially Oprah's recent book, What Happened to You, that was a big inspiration. So those are some of the people.
How can we focus our energy to achieve our goals and not feel overwhelmed during the process of goal setting?
Say that one more time.
How can we focus our energy to achieve our goals and not feel overwhelmed during the process of goal setting?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to answer that in 1 second because I also forgot a big inspiration. Honestly, and this, I mean this in the most genuine way, youth inspire me. Like watching you guys out here doing your thing and growing at whatever stage in life you are, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And I feel like we don't give you enough kudos. And so I'm inspired by how y'all live out loud. So that's another big inspiration. It's the fuel for why I keep going. Now, in terms of the question that you just asked, I would say keep your why at the center. Always remember your why. Things are going to get tough. Things are going to really throw you off. The struggles are going to come. Remember your why because that is the fuel to keep you going. And if you feel like your why is unclear, the answer rests right here. So all you got to do is ask yourself until you feel like you've come up with an answer that you personally feel secure with, and then rock out with that.
Stop ourselves from comparing ourselves to others.
Oh, I fall into that rut too. I fall into that rut from time to time too. And I think that the answer is the same no matter what age you are. And I would say, remember, like, reflect on who you are. Because I think that, to some degree, it's like when you really take some time and just reflect on who you are and all the amazing things that you are, like brag about yourself in your own head, allow yourself to get lost in that. And when you remember that, it takes away the comparison, especially if you couple it with the remembering your why and who you are. That helps you to get right back on track and stop comparing and reduce the comparisons.
Wow, our sixth question is, how is a coach different from a counselor?
So a counselor explores the why of things. Why within certain behaviors, why within certain impact, like the impacts of things, why it has this particular impact. And I would say a coach is more focused on the how. Like, how are we taking what actually is and we're going to work with this? Especially from my line of work with transformational coaching, it is how are you going to use who you are and what you got to get to where you want to go? We're going to map this out. We're going to put supportive structures in place and help you be successful. I don't do a lot of focusing on the why and the historical context of things, whereas counselors can support you through that.
What are three things people are struggling with due to the pandemic?
Three things. I would say acceptance around what has happened. Like accepting that, okay, what you thought was normal just isn't anymore. Um, and then feeling stuck, like not knowing where to go next, not knowing how to try to move forward because you don't know what's coming next. And then the third thing I would say is a lot of relationships shifted during this pandemic, during a lockdown of the pandemic. And so coming out of that, trying to figure out what family dynamics look like, what intimate partner relationships look like now, who you are, because we all had our own, bouts of personal discovery and trying to make sense of all this and figure out what next. So I think those are some struggles that are not talked about as much.
Um, how do you practice self-care and avoid burnouts?
Um, so aside from like the big ones like vacations and spas and things, I would say I practice self-care every day. It is mandatory because my overthinking would cause me to lose my mind if I don't check myself. So I listen to music. I take deep breaths. Like the power of a deep breath, especially when you're like spinning around in your head, underrated. So music, deep breaths, and walks. So my walks I started with the walks during the pandemic and then it turned into runs. And some days I just don't feel like running, so I'm walking again, but I need to take that time. So that's my self-care to keep me sane and centered.
Um, what do you give to young people who are struggling?
Young people who are struggling, I would say reflect on who you are and use the affirmations. Use affirmations to help you stay in balance. So that's one aspect of it. And then another thing I would say is discovering what the struggle actually is, right? So there could be a number of different struggles. So isolating what is really your struggle. Pull that out, give it a name, and that helps to reduce it. Because sometimes our struggles have us like, we're in this tailspin and we can't think straight. We can't see straight. It has us consumed. Pull it out, call it out, identify it by name, and then remember. When I said remember who you are, remember that your mind is so powerful. And so you can transform how you see that struggle. You can look at it and say, this is a momentary thing that I am going to get through. And if you continue to remind yourself of this and tell yourself this, then what can start to happen is you'll want to figure out, well, how can I prove this to myself? How can I prove that I'm really going to get through? And that's when you get action oriented on your struggle. And those things can help to reduce it over time while simultaneously building up your capacity to move through life. Like these are skills and things that you learn firsthand that take you far.
Um, what advice that you've been given throughout your lifetime that has positively impacted your mental health?
Uh, so full transparency, that question throughout my lifetime. So I was able to convert some things that I heard a lot growing up into fuel to help me move forward. So it's not the most positive saying, but it was something that I converted into a positive thing for me. And it was you got this. So on the surface, it sounds like great. That's a cheerful thing. People were rooting for you. And in reality, oftentimes when it was said to me, it was said because people didn't know what else to say. They didn't know how to help me through. And so it's just like, put it back on you. You'll figure it out. And so what I did with that was I kept using that as fuel. If they're saying I got it and I'm on my own with this, how can I make it through? How can I make it through? And it led me to finding a host of different things to help me push through. So it took longer than I would have liked for some things, right? But I eventually found a great therapist. I tried therapy 2 times prior to me finding an amazing therapist. And I would say to anyone who is struggling finding a match, keep looking. I found it kept me going to find my match there. It kept me going to finishing school. It kept me going to stepping out on my passion, like leaving my full-time job to pursue this, even that. You got this. That's saying I used it for my fuel to keep going. So it's helped my mental health in that way.
Our last question, through the experience you have now, how have your goals in life changed?
They they've evolved. They haven't really changed much. They've grown. Um, I would say when I was younger, there was one or two things that I wanted to do, and I ended up doing neither. But I used to say I wanted to be a teacher because I wanted to help educate people and expand their minds, not just from a textbook standpoint. I was kind of always a push the envelope kind of person, so it was like expanding beyond just what the books say. And if I didn't go into teaching, then I wanted to go into family law because I wanted to be an advocate for kids. Um, and so it was advocacy or development. And what I ended up doing was I went into child welfare, which was both advocacy and development for me. And then that led me to my passion of coaching. And now I get to do both. So it just continues to grow.
So, any final words of advice or tips you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would say no matter what you are seeing around, always make sure that you are operating every day from a space of you. Know your why and live in that unapologetically. Um, One of the things that I'm very passionate about is making sure that, especially from the youth standpoint, because if we don't pick this up in our younger years, we grow into adults with this struggle. So being proud of who you are, standing in that, and learning how to make it work to the best of your ability. I used to always tell young people that I was working with, don't change your attitude. You know, when people used to say you have an attitude or you're bad or you're this or you're that, I would tell them, do not change your attitude. Learn how to make it work for you, which means there's alterations to be made according to where you want to go. So if cursing out the teacher is going to get you thrown out and you actually want to be a lawyer, baby, we're going to need a little altering on that one. Let's switch that up a little bit. How you want to present what you're feeling. And so know your why, stand in it, be proud, and make it work for you.
Well, I'm gonna ask, does the audience have any questions?
And while we're waiting for them, you were great. I
Thank
was nervous. I
you.
was a little bit nervous, but you were great. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, someone said they love my energy. Thank you. Or maybe that was for you. Let me not steal your compliment if that was for you.
That could have been for both of us.
I love what you guys are doing.
Okay, somebody asked, how does one know their why?
So it takes a little bit of time for you to get comfortable with it, but it's that little thing, that little voice, that inner knowing where when you start asking yourself, this is what I believe. When you start asking yourself, why am I doing this? I always say, start with your first answer. Even if your first answer is because my friend says so, or because he said I look nice, she said I look nice, always start there and then go backwards. Why does that matter? Why do I care? And where you land, there's going to reach a point where you are going to feel like, yep, this is it. All you can do is practice and say, okay, if this is it, let me operate in that way. And then continue. You'll start to realize what feels comfortable for you. And when you're not operating from a space of who you truly are, there'll be that discomfort because you won't quite feel like it fits you. And so ask yourself why, and then move on based on what your answers are. And once you get into the habit of continuing to ask that, and there's a couple of other things that are attached, but that really is key to helping you get a better sense of self, which leads you always back to your why.
Somebody asks, what advice do you give financially?
Oh, I need somebody to give me advice financially. But this is a funny question that I'm being asked this point, right? I believe nothing happens by accident. So for me, I have always been one that I felt very responsible. I'm like, I am paranoid about not being able to pay my bills. I've been paying bills on my own since almost like right before my 18th birthday. So I have been paranoid about making sure my bills were paid. And so I had like this really tight relationship with money. Sorry about the Bronx soundtrack. Um, and so as of recent, I'm starting to realize that it's always going to come, especially if you're operating from a genuine space. Money is always going to come. And so now that my faith life is strengthening, I give. I give more, and it just kind of comes. Like I found a personal investment guy that I work with. Like little things start to happen. Someone tells me about this and I go into personal investment. Um, I save up and I look at my spending habits and what am I spending on, and I ask myself, how is this going to serve me? And if it's just a temporary thing that doesn't have a lot of value to it, I'm less likely to do it now. Aside from food, my money. I eat a lot. Uh, but yeah, so I don't have any like major stock tips or money tips like that. I would just say it's always going to come. So spend it on stuff that makes you feel like it's serving you and where you're going.
So that's all the questions. Like, I don't see any more. So, I want to thank you once again for taking the time out of your day to do this interview. And have a nice evening, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.